Empanadillas de Pizza, Puerto Rican pizza hand pies. Crispy, golden, and delicious, and filled with yummy mozzarella cheese and tomato sauce. So good. Sally, that girl, in the kitchen. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sally, that girl, in the kitchen. In today's episode, I'm going to teach you how to make empanadillas de pizza, Puerto Rican pizza hand pies. So if you've watched any of my videos before, you may know that I spent 15 years living on the island of Puerto Rico. And when I moved back to the States, to South Florida, I brought with me so many amazing friends, of course. That's the most important part. And of course, the 3 kids that I had in Puerto Rico. And those 3 kids absolutely love these empanadillas de pizza. They remind them of their childhood when they were small and living on the island, and they're just absolutely amazing. They're crispy and perfect and filled with cheese and sauce, and they're just super easy to put together and really, really special. So, some of you may know empanadillas as empanadas, which is what I used to call them before I moved to the island of Puerto Rico because my parents are Cuban. And to us, what I'm making today is an empanada. So it doesn't matter what you call it, empanada, empanadilla. Actually, a funny side note, when I moved to the island of Puerto Rico, I did not know that these were empanadillas and not empanadas. And so if you order an empanada at a restaurant in Puerto Rico, you're actually ordering a bistec empanizado, a breaded steak. So you really need to know your lingo. And of course, I caught on really quick. So I'm super excited to teach you how to make these. So let's not wait another second and let's get started. For the dough part of today's recipe, you will need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 tablespoon of salt, 3 tablespoons of vegetable shortening, and 1 cup of cold water. And for the filling part of today's recipe, you will need 18 ounces of tomato sauce, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of dried basil, 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, 16 ounces of mozzarella cheese. I prefer using block form, but of course you can use shredded if you prefer, and 24 ounces of vegetable oil. You will also need some measuring spoons, some dry measuring cups, a wet measuring cup, a skimmer or a spider, a couple of spoons, a fork, and I'm using a large serving fork, but of course you can use a whisk or a dough whisk to make the dough, a rolling pin or a handheld roller like the one I show here, a large bowl, and then either another medium-sized bowl, or in my case, I'm just using a large Pyrex measuring cup as a bowl, and a plate with some paper towel. If you're using cheese in block form, then of course you'll also need a cutting board and a knife. And finally, you will need a large skillet for frying your beautiful empanadillas de pizza. So now that we have all of our ingredients and tools together, let's get started. First thing we're going to work on is our dough. So the first thing you want to do is measure out your flour and just add it to your large bowl. Now, right on top of that, you're going to add your baking powder. Make sure to get all of that in. And then you're also going to add your salt. Now, once all of that is in, then you're just going to incorporate the ingredients. Just mix them well. I like to use a serving fork for this, but as I said, you can use a whisk or a dough whisk, whatever you prefer working with. So once you combine all of those ingredients, then we're going to move on to add our vegetable shortening. So I am using shortening that comes in stick form because it's just really easy to measure. It's marked, the tablespoons, but if not, you can just scoop out 3 tablespoons if you're using the tub form instead. And then you're just going to use your hands and you're going to work that shortening right into this dry mixture. And it actually feels really great when you work with shortening and flour. It's just really a beautifully soothing feeling. So make sure to break up that shortening using your hands really well, and then just take a moment to meditate and to relax as you do so, because there's just something incredibly wonderful about working with your hands. So the next thing you want to do is measure out your water, but you want cold water from the refrigerator. This is really nice and cold. And then I'm going to add that cold water right on top of these ingredients. And then once again, I'm going to go right in with my hand, and I'm just going to bring all of the ingredients together. I like to work with my hands because I just really like to work that dough, and there's nothing like your fingers for scraping down the sides of a bowl. Of course, if you prefer, you can work with a wooden spoon, or you can work however you're more comfortable with, but I prefer working dough, especially with my hands. So I just go right into the bowl, and then I use my fingers to just scrape the sides, making sure to pick up any dry flour from the sides of the bowl as I go. And I actually use the dough itself to help me clean up the bowl. So the dough will attract that flour. So just grab some of that dough as you go, and then just use it to pick up all of that dry flour in the bowl. So now, once you've been able to get all of the flour incorporated, then you're going to grab the dough and remove it from the bowl. And at this point, I like to work on my counter. Of course, my extremely clean counter that I clean right before I start working. And so all I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this dough and I'm going to knead it for a full 5 minutes. So it's very simple. You see that the dough is nice and cohesive. It's not sticking to my countertop at all. It's just super nice to work with. But of course, if you find that yours is sticking a bit to your counter, then you could always sprinkle your counter with just a touch of flour. So after a full 5 minutes of kneading, then our dough is ready, and we're just going to put it back in our bowl, and we're going to let it sit for 30 minutes. This is why I do the dough first, because now I'm going to allow my dough to rest while I prepare my filling. So I'm going to grab my cheese, I'm going to unwrap it, and then I'm going to cut it into pieces. So I've actually cut 10 and 10, so 20 pieces, because I'm going to be using 2 pieces of mozzarella in each one of these empanadillas. Then go ahead and grab your medium bowl, or in my case, of course, I'm using a Pyrex measuring cup, and then you want to add your tomato sauce into it. So now we're going to season our sauce. We're going to start with some salt, then we're going to add in some sugar. Then we are going to be adding some dried basil, some dried oregano. Then we're going to add some garlic powder, and then some onion powder. Now, all of this is going to create incredible flavor. And then, of course, some extra virgin olive oil to finish it all off. We want delicious Italian seasonings in our tomato sauce, because this is, after all, an empanadilla de pizza. We want that delicious pizza flavor in our empanadilla. So then we're just going to stir it all together to combine. Make sure to incorporate all of those dry ingredients into our sauce and that yummy extra virgin olive oil, and our sauce is now ready to go. So now I am going to grab a little bit of flour, because 30 minutes have passed, and I'm now going to divide my dough up in order to be able to make my empanadillas. So now all I do is I grab my dough and I place it on my counter that I have just floured. You definitely want to flour your counter for this step, because you do not want your dough sticking to the counter. And then you're just going to gently pull your dough to form a long log, because what we're looking to do is divide the dough into 10 pieces. So I divide it in half, and then from each half, I'm going to get 5 pieces for a total of 10, because I'm going to be getting 10 empanadillas out of this recipe. So 5 on one side, and then I do the same on the other side for 5 more. So then I just use my hands to separate the pieces, and I just want to create 10 loose balls. You don't want to work the dough too much at this point. You just want to separate each piece and then just form a dough ball and then place it right on your counter. Now we're going to form our empanadillas. So we grab one dough ball and make sure you have plenty of flour on the counter. You do want to flour your counter before each empanadilla. And then you're going to use either your rolling pin or your handheld roller, the way I'm doing here, and you're going to roll out your dough. You're looking to form a circle, and then what we're going to do is once we've rolled our dough out, this is going to be our disc, our crust, our crispy, delicious outside layer of this delicious empanadilla de pizza. So now we've rolled it out. It's nice and thin. I just want to show you what the dough looks like. It's just nice and thin, and there's plenty of flour on the counter so that the dough will not stick to my counter. And then once it's ready, what we're going to do is we're going to grab some cheese and start filling. So I'm using block mozzarella because I just really like the way this cheese melts, and it's going to give it that delicious, chewy, stretchy feel. But of course, like I said, you can use shredded if you prefer, but I really like the results you get with this type of cheese. And then all you're going to do is you're going to add some sauce right on top of that, and then I'm smelling those incredible herbs and spices, just so amazingly delicious. And then you're going to grab your dough and you're just going to take your dough and fold it over your filling ever so gently. And then you want both sides of your dough to meet. And then you're just using your fingers to gently bring the dough together. Now, you're looking for a half moon shape, and then once you've created that, all you're going to do next is grab a fork, and you're going to use your fork to press down all around the edge of your empanadilla so that you're sure that both pieces of dough have really come together and your empanadilla will not open when you're ready to fry it. And then you guessed it, you're going to flour your counter again. You're going to grab your next piece, flatten it out a bit, and then just roll it out like we did with the first piece. You're just going to repeat this process over and over. We're going to be making 10 empanadillas. But for starters, I'm going to make 3 or 4 of them, and then I'm going to start frying, and that way I can fry and I can work on making my next batch while my first batch is frying. So now that I've made a couple, I'm going to add my oil into my large skillet because I want to start heating it up so that when I make 3 or 4, I can start my frying process. So at this point, I turn my heat on to medium, and then I just start warming up that oil, and that way as I continue to work, my oil starts to heat up, and once I have 3 or 4 ready, I can start to fry. So I decided that I'm going to make a total of 4 for my first batch. Since there will be a total of 10, I'll do 4, 3, and 3. So once my first 4 are ready, then I'm going to fry those 4 at once because I don't want to overcrowd my pan. So I tested my oil with a tiny piece of dough to make sure it was bubbling up and nice and hot. And then I just used my spider to help me add the empanadillas de pizza into the hot bubbling oil. Now all that's left to do is let them cook for about 2 minutes on one side, and then you're just going to grab your spider, and I help myself with a fork, and I just flip my empanadillas over to make sure that they brown on both sides. And once they've had a chance to do so, then all you're going to want to do is use your spider to remove them from the hot oil very carefully. And then I'm placing them on a plate that I lined with paper towel to help absorb that excess oil, and they've become golden and beautiful. And don't worry if some of them look a little wonky. This one right here came out a little wonky looking, but that's okay because it's going to be just as delicious. And nobody said they have to be perfect. They're going to be so yummy because they're homemade and made with love. And that delicious mozzarella is melty and stretchy and chewy combined with that delicious tomato sauce that we've created, and they're going going to be so good. So now all I have to do is move on to shape the rest of my empanadillas, and I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to fry 2 more batches. I'll do 3 and 3 to then give me a total of 10, and I basically just repeat the same thing, remembering to flour my counter, stretching them out, filling them with cheese and sauce, folding them over, using the back of my fork to close them, and then of course adding them to the bubbling hot oil to fry and allowing them to become golden on one side, flipping them over and allowing them to become golden on the second side, removing them onto a plate with paper towel, and then just continuing to shape them and repeat the process until I've created 10 beautiful empanadillas de pizza. These guys are so delicious and crispy and golden. I'm sure you can appreciate just how yummy they're going to be. So now all 10 have been shaped and fried. I'm going to turn off my stove and look at how gorgeous these guys are looking. Crispy and golden, sitting on that paper towel, letting go of that excess oil. And now they've cooled down just a touch. And now I can remove the paper towel and place them onto a serving platter. And just look at how golden and delicious they look. That dough is crispy and just absolutely perfect. I cannot wait to try one of these. I'm going to cut into one right now. Oh, wow, look at that little squirt of tomato sauce. That's a good sign. And look at that stretchy mozzarella cheese and those herbs. It is looking so delicious. Look at how beautiful the inside looks. They're just crispy on the outside and chewy and delicious on the inside. Yum, yum. These are perfect. They're just fantastic all around. So good. My guys are going to love this. It is just exactly how they remember. Nice and crispy on the outside. Chewy and flavorful on the inside. I'm not in the habit of letting you hear me chew, but listen to this. So crispy. It's just the right amount of tomato sauce. That melty cheese. Perfect. And that extra tomato sauce is savory and delicious. It's perfect for serving some on the side, so you can dip your empanadillas de pizza into it, or you can just whip up some pasta with it, make some pizza bagels. You can do so many things with it. It's perfect for dipping or for just consuming on pretty much anything. So how incredible do these look? They're crispy and golden and yummy, and they're filled with stretchy cheese and the perfect amount of sauce. And of course you have that leftover sauce that you can use for dipping if you really like them saucy. But they're just absolutely perfect. They come together quickly. They're not difficult to make at all. I know that nowadays a lot of stores will sell you pre-made discs to make empanadillas or empanadas, however you like to call them. But once you learn how to make this dough, it is so quick and easy. It comes together in a flash, and you can make your own fresh, delicious, amazing dough, and you will really tell the difference. There's nothing like homemade. Trust me. No, better yet, don't trust me. You're gonna have to try to make this recipe yourself. And of course, if you've enjoyed today's recipe, don't forget to like, comment, and share. And if you haven't done so already, remember to subscribe to my channel and to touch that little notification bell so that you get notified every time I put up a new amazing, delicious recipe, which I do all of the time. And be sure to explore under my video tab because I have so many recipes already there that I know you're gonna love. And if you're not following me on social media, you can follow me as Sally That Girl in the Kitchen on Facebook, Instagram, and on Pinterest. And you can find me as Sally That Girl FL on Twitter, Snapchat, and on TikTok. See you next time. Sally That Girl in the Kitchen.